So this is part 2 of chapter 27, and we were talking about hyperhydration or overhydration. There are different reasons for that. You're drinking a lot of water. You're injecting saline or solution that's hypotonic. You cannot lose the water for any reason. How do we usually lose the water? Through the kidney. If the kidney is failed or something, that will cause that. Heart failure, the blood is not moving much, so you cannot get rid of part of it. Cirrhosis, this is a liver fibrosis. So the liver cannot get rid of certain things. And ADH is the last one. If there is a lot of ADH, you're drinking normal water, but you don't get rid of enough of it, right? Normally you have ADH that's enough that what you gain is equal to what you lose. Now you're gaining, but you cannot lose the same amount because ADH is taking it back, excessive ADH. So the problem here is with hyperhydration, which is overhydration, you have extra amount of water in the blood. The blood volume, of course, increase, but the main issue is the concentration. You will have the electrolyte, generally speaking, electrolytes, but most importantly is sodium. The concentration will be low. And that can cause issues, including something called water intoxication, which is disturbance of the central nervous system function. So basically, if you have solute in a solution, there are two ways to make it diluted, right? Either less solute or more solution, isn't it? You can put 1 spoonful of sugar in 1 cup, or you can put it in 2 cups, that's be more diluted, or you can put half, right? So you can play with both of them to make the solution diluted. And when you dilute everything. Look at this: hyponatremia. Hypo is low, obviously. Natter means sodium. Emia, no, emia means blood. Hypo is deficiency or low. Emia means blood. So hyponatremia means low sodium in the blood. Low sodium, like we have less sodium? No, this is not accurate. It's low sodium concentration, which is different. Sodium didn't change. Is that clear? The amount of sodium didn't change. It's the concentration that changed. 1 spoon of sugar in a cup, 1 spoon of sugar still didn't change in 2 cups, right? So the concentration is the one that's changing, not the amount. So normally with the electrolyte balance, we're supposed to have it equal, gain and lose. And the most important difference between sodium and potassium is what I mentioned before, which is sodium is the main extracellular cation, right? It is the dominant outside of the cells. Potassium is the main intracellular cation. You have to remember this. It's very important. Sodium is the main extracellular cation. Potassium is the main intracellular cation. Um, the importance of sodium come from that sodium automatically, if you guys still remember that, remember the rule of the thumb: sodium followed by chloride, followed by water, followed by bicarb, right? They go like that, like a shadow. And the opposite is potassium and hydrogen. Do you still remember this? So the thing is, sodium, anytime you have sodium, chloride will come to it. It attracts it. And this is salt. So salt is what's making the osmotic concentration. It's not the only thing. There is also proteins, plasma proteins, and others, but this is one of the major things that's changing the osmotic pressure. And that's why if you are in a hospital, somebody's in the hospital, and he's getting like this saline, there is always a percentage on it. They always say like 0.9%, 1%, 2%. Did you ever see that before? On the saline, in the solution, they have to say what is it. If you read it, it should be like 0.9, then that's normal. And what are we talking about? About this sodium chloride, about the salt, the amount of salt in it. So this is the main determinant of the osmotic pressure, which is sodium salts, including sodium chloride, which is the most important, followed by sodium bicarb. And I think you remember, just mentioned it, chloride is negative, bicarb is negative. Whenever you have sodium, chloride will follow it, and bicarb will follow it. And these are two different salts. Normally, when we talk about any concentration, we say equivalent or milli equivalent. Milli equivalent. So it's not gram, it's not milligram. It's usually for the electrolytes, we say milli equivalent. This is how we measure it. And the normal is 140 in the extracellular fluid, less 10 less than that in the extracellular. I told you guys before, when I say sodium is the main extracellular, it doesn't mean there is no sodium inside, right? It means just it's more, 10 more. 140 outside, 130 inside. So it's just more outside. Same thing exactly for potassium. Potassium is more inside, but do we have it outside? Yes, we do. It's just more. Main or dominant means more. It doesn't exactly mean absolutely like the other side doesn't have it. Here is potassium. This is the dominant intracellular cation, and the normal is 3.5 to 5.5, which is about 4.5 milli equivalent. And sodium balance, potassium balance, it's all about input and output, gain and loss. This is always the case. So if you gain more than you lose, you have extra. If you lose more than you gain, you have less amount. And again, the sodium regulate the extracellular fluid volume. Why? Because if you have more sodium in the blood, you will have automatically chloride, sodium chloride, that's salt, right? When you have salt, what will follow the salt? Water. So you're increasing the volume by increasing sodium, followed by chloride, followed by water. The side that have more sodium chloride will have more volume. So if you have more sodium chloride in the blood volume itself increase. So this is how it goes if sodium, which will make sodium chloride, if it increase, osmotic pressure increase, that affects the hypothalamus and the posterior pituitary, releasing ADH. ADH reabsorb water and maintaining the concentration or returning the concentration back to normal and vice versa. If you have low sodium, does it make sense? You have low sodium, you have low sodium chloride, right? So now the concentration or the osmotic pressure is low. That will inhibit the production of ADH. And it will actually cause the opposite, which is atrial natriuretic peptide and brain natriuretic peptide. These terms are what I want you to know. You don't really have to remember the numbers, but at least I want you to understand what does it mean. That's all what I need. Okay? Four terms that I want you to know, and both of them have the exact same thing. All of them are hypo or hyperemia, and that's it. Just put something in the middle; it will make sense. Hyponatremia, hypernatremia, hypokalemia, hyperkalemia. Cal is K-A-L, which is potassium. This have nothing to do with calcemia. Okay, kalemia is different than calcemia. Calcemia is calcium. Kalemia is potassium. And this is what I want you to know. Hyponatremia, hypernatremia. And again, it's a very common question to see which one come with hyperhydration and which come with dehydration for both sodium and potassium. I think it's clear now. Which one come with overhydration or hyperhydration? Hypo or hyper? Hypo. It's diluted, right? How about if it is dehydrated? Hyper. So you should remember that. And again, that will reflect on the blood volume and blood pressure. When the blood volume increase, what happened to the blood pressure? Increase. Blood volume increase, blood pressure increase. And how would the blood volume increase? Hyperhydration. Hyperhydration increase the volume, increasing the blood pressure. It's all linked. Okay, so it's the same thing here. What I want you to know is just the basics. Okay, sodium goes up, chloride goes up. So sodium chloride, water, volume, hypertension, right? That will lead to increased atrial natriuretic peptide. If it is the opposite, if it goes up, ADH will be increased. If it goes down, atrial natriuretic peptide is going to increase or is going to be released, and it's going to compensate for that. So what is your body going to do if you have extra sodium? You're going to lose it in the urine. Water will also lost in the urine. You will feel thirst. So you will get more water to dilute it. Is that clear? Sodium in your body goes up. What are you going to do? Lose it in the urine. This is one way, right? And I'm talking about the concentration, not the amount. You will feel thirsty and you're going to drink water. You're going to dilute it. So you're decreasing the concentration and so on. Potassium is a main intracellular cation, but there's a huge difference between inside and outside. It's a lot more inside, okay? And same thing, hypokalemia, hyperkalemia. This is something that you need to know. Now, this is something that's important, and I talked about it again. Most of this is repeat, by the way, if you guys are following with me. What's the relationship between sodium potassium on one side and pH? What if you have extra or sodium increased, which is hypernatremia? Is that followed by acidosis or alkalosis? I know this part is not easy, but just think. So I'm saying sodium goes up, which is hypernatremia. Is that followed by acidosis or alkalosis? It's alkalosis, but why? Yes. Why? Yes, because bicarb follow. Sodium increase, chloride, bicarb. So that will lead to alkalosis. Hyponatremia, it means low sodium, low chloride, low bicarb. And what is that? Isn't that acidosis? How about potassium? What do you call it when potassium increase? It's called hyperkalemia. Is that followed by acidosis or alkalosis? Think about it. Don't guess. Not just because it's two, so it's 50-50. Let's pick one of them. No, think about it. Hyperkalemia, followed by acidosis or alkalosis. Hyperkalemia, high potassium. What follow potassium? Hydrogen. So is it acidosis or alkalosis? Acidosis, right? Did you get it? So these terms, hypo, hyponatremic acidosis, hypernatremic alkalosis, and vice versa. And this is the relationship between sodium and potassium from one side and the pH from the other side. And this is all managed by aldosterone. Okay. Too much details. I told you what you have to know. If you're following with me, you will know exactly what I want you to know. Here is hypokalemia that I talked about. Here is hyperkalemia that I talked about as well. It's just high and low potassium concentration in the blood. And I told you about the relationship between those and the pH. Uh, one more thing that I want you to know here with sodium and potassium, which is you can write it down if you want to, but this is something that you need to know. Sodium imbalance is more common, but potassium imbalance is worse. Did you get the idea? Sodium imbalance is more common. If I have 100 person that have electrolyte imbalance, 80% of them will have sodium issues, okay? Versus only 20%. So potassium is less common? Yes, but more dangerous, okay? Less people get issues with potassium, but it's more dangerous because it can basically affect the heart itself. So just this piece of information that I want you to remember. For calcium, it is the same idea. You gain calcium, you lose calcium. And this is something that we did before. If you guys still remember, if you forgot, we gain from food, calcium go to the blood, food, which is absorption. You take it back from the urine, from the urinary system, I mean, which is reabsorption. You take it from the bone, right? And how you lose it? You send it back to the bone, you send it to the kidney, right? These are the factors, and it should be equal. If there is any imbalance, it's the same idea. All of them are the same. Gain is more than loss, it increase. Loss is more than gain, it decrease. It's just common sense, right? What's the importance of calcium that you need to know? Number one, muscles. Number two, nerves. Muscles and nerves, they don't work. We did that in 233. I'm not going to go through it again, but at least you guys should remember that muscles cannot contract without calcium, right? Nervous system cannot work without calcium. Bone. We know that it's the bone is what? It's a calcium salt, isn't it? Why the bone is hard? It's calcium salt. So calcium. Clotting, blood clots. If you don't have enough calcium, blood clot will be dysfunctional. It's important for blood clots. It's also a cofactor. Some enzymes need it to work, and it works as a second messenger. And this is something that we talked about before when we talked in the endocrine system. You guys probably forgot, but remember that if there is something, a hormone that's not lipid soluble, it work on the membrane from outside, right? And there has to be a second messenger. Some of these second messengers are calcium. And it's all about parathyroid hormone and calcitonin. Everything here, almost most of it is repeat, okay, from previous chapters. And that's why uh, this is not like the most important, not because it's the information here is not important, it's just because it's repeat. So parathyroid hormone does that increase or decrease calcium in the blood? Parathyroid hormone. It increase. How? Absorption. But does the parathyroid hormone increase absorption by itself or through something? What is it? Parathyroid hormone does not increase calcium absorption directly. It mediates something. What is that something? Vitamin D. Vitamin D, which is calcitriol. Remember active calcium, active vitamin D, I'm sorry, that's activated in the kidney, calcitriol. This is one. And it takes calcium from the bone to the blood and reabsorb calcium from the urinary system back to the blood. All three increase calcium level if it goes down. Calcitonin, opposite. So you should remember these two. So here is the gain and here is the loss. You have to have balance. And I want you to know just the terms. Again, hypercalcemia and hypocalcemia. These terms are important to know. Okay. So all what you need to do to remember is hypo, hyper, and emia. If you know these, just put in the middle anything you want and you get it right. Anything. Okay. Hyper something emia, hypo something emia. Anything can be natter for sodium, can be cal for potassium, it can be calci for calcium and so on. So here is hypo and hyper. And the reasons here are all understanding what increased calcium in the blood, parathyroid hormone, and vitamin D. What if I don't have it? Deficiency, right? If the kidney is not doing the work, not retaining it, renal failure. Magnesium. Magnesium is important for the bone. It's part of the structure of the bone. Small amounts. We need small amounts, but still part of the bone. It also help enzymes. So bone and enzymes. This is the most important thing about magnesium. Bone and enzymes. Okay. Can you make up increase and decrease? Hypomagnesemia. Hypermagnesemia. Right? Phosphate. Also for the bone and for the enzymes. For the bone and enzymes. Plus high energy. You remember the ATP, phosphate, P. So yes, so basically magnesium and phosphate, both of them, just to make it easy for you, both of them important for what? For bone and enzymes. Phosphate is also for ATP and nucleic acids. ATP and nucleic acids. Chloride. Chloride is important for the osmotic pressure. Remember sodium chloride? So it's important for osmotic pressure. And this is the main extracellular anion. Do you remember this? Extracellular anion. Now pH. We know that pH is normally 7.35, 7.45. It goes up. What do you call it? Above 7.45. What do you call it? Alkalosis. And under 7.35, acidosis. What are the controlling factors? I have hydrogen and I have OH, right? Hydrogen and hydroxide, or hydrogen and bicarb. It's the same thing, or it work the same way. So I have those two, and if I put them together, that's called salt. So here is the normal pH, and we don't need to know how they come like negative, the algorithm. That's not something that you needed. You just need to know that the pH is a measurement of acidity or alkalinity. That's it. And normal it's 7.35, 7.45. The neutral is 7. The other thing that I want you to know is there is a difference between acidic and acidosis. These are two different things. Okay? Acidic means not neutral. Like neutral is 7, isn't it? 7.5, 7.1, let's say 7.1. Is that acidic or alkaline? 7.1, acidic or alkaline? It's alkaline. But is it acidosis or alkalosis? Acidosis. So it's alkaline, but acidosis? Yes, because these are completely different things. Okay? 7 is neutral. Anything, this is from the chemistry, not from physiology. Chemistry. 7 is neutral. Anything above 7 is alkali. Anything under 7 is acid. Put this to the side. Acidosis and alkalosis is a relative term. Relative term. It's you're referring to not to that pH measurements. No, you're referring to the normal. Above the normal or under the normal. Is that clear? So for acid and base, your point is 7. For acidosis and alkalosis, your reference is normal pH. Yes, exactly. Yes. Acidosis or alkalosis, your reference is 7.35, 7.45. Okay? Acid or alkali, your reference is 7. Is that clear? So there is a big difference, and you guys need to notice that. So this is for acid versus alkali, which is different than acidosis, alkalosis. These are different terms. And by definition, acid is what release hydrogen. Acid is any compound that release H. And base is anything that release hydroxide or take away hydrogen. These definitions are important to know. And that's why I'm going through it. I'm not skipping it. How about salt? Salt is simply any cation and any anion. You put them together, you call it salt. The only exception to that, there is one exception only. Hydrogen and OH. Hydrogen is positive, isn't it? OH is negative, isn't it? That doesn't count. Because hydrogen and OH is, what's hydrogen and OH when you react them together? Water. So is that salt? No, it's water. This is the only exception. Anything else, any anion with any cation, when they react, we call that salt. Any anion, any cation, yes, with exception of hydrogen versus hydroxide group or hydroxide ion. Buffer is a substance that can remove or release hydrogen. What can release hydrogen? What do you call it? Release. That's it. Just release. What do you call it? Acid. Yes, acid. Release. What can take? Base. How about if I have something that can do both of them? Like one end do something and the other end do something. I call that buffer. Okay, buffer has two ends. One end that can acidify, can release hydrogen, and the other end can release OH or remove hydrogen. And we call that the buffer system. So acidosis, again, here it is. Acidosis is under 7.35. And you cannot call the blood acidic in this case. You cannot. You just call it acidosis. I think this is understandable. Alkalosis is above 7.45. And if when you say acidosis, like the acids are increased, what are these acids? Fixed acids, metabolic acids, and volatile acids. These are the three types of acids. Fixed acids, these are fixed in a solution. It doesn't go away. It's fixed. Okay? And sulfuric acid and phosphoric acid, these are the most important ones. And they come from different things like amino acid, phospholipid, nucleic acid, but you need to remember those names, sulfuric acid and phosphoric acid. These are fixed acids. If it is in a solution, it doesn't go. It's fixed. And that's why we call it fixed. Metabolic acids, this is something that comes from metabolism. What's metabolism? Do you remember metabolism? Glucose goes into the cells, you get glycolysis, pyruvic acid, mitochondria. Do you remember that? So pyruvic acid is one of them. How did you get the pyruvic acid? Metabolism. Glucose goes into the cells and you break it down. What if it is hypoxia or anaerobic? Do you remember that the extra pyruvic acid become lactic acid? Do you still remember that? So it's coming from here. Ketone bodies. Yes, you can work on ketone bodies. How? Diabetes. Do you still remember? If your insulin is not working or you don't have enough insulin, insulin push glucose into the cells. Do you still remember this? This is the most important thing. It push glucose into the cells to eat it. It feed the cells. If you don't have enough insulin, cells will be starving and they will turn to proteins and fat, ending in producing ketone bodies. So these are the metabolic acids, means they come from metabolism. You need to remember these. What does it mean and where does it and what is it? Pyruvic acid, lactic acid, and ketone bodies. Volatile acids, from the name, it's volatile, means it's break down and evaporate. You can get rid of it. And here it's all about carbon dioxide. And I talked about those so many times. I told you most of the chapter is a repeat from different chapters. Okay. So what is it here? It's all about breathing, right? And I hope you guys still remember. So I'm gonna ask you, when I breathe more, Do I get rid of more carbon dioxide or I keep the carbon dioxide? Do I get rid of it more when I do like this? I'm doing this. Do I get rid of more carbon dioxide or I keep more? It does. Why I'm breathing? What am I doing here? To get rid of what? Carbon dioxide. So what when you breathe more? Get rid of more. This is what you're doing, right? I'm breathing to get rid of carbon dioxide and gain oxygen. What if I breathe more? You're doing the same thing, but more, right? You get rid of more carbon dioxide, I gain more oxygen. This is what it is. And that's why if you are exercising, you hyperventilate, aren't you? Automatically. If you are in a treadmill and you speed up, you go like this, right? Why? Because I'm working, so I'm making more carbon dioxide. I need to get rid of it. And I'm working, I need more oxygen. Isn't this is why you're breathing? Anytime if you forgot it, just remember why I am breathing in the first place. I'm breathing to gain oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. What if you breathe more? You gain more oxygen, you get rid of more carbon dioxide. Clear? And then what happened to the pH when I get rid of more carbon dioxide? It means carbon dioxide in the blood increase or decrease. When I get rid of more, what happened to it in the blood? Decrease. And what carbon dioxide is doing in the blood? It reacts with water to do what? Carbonic, carbonic what? Carbonic acid, right? So if I breathe more, I have less carbon dioxide and I have less carbonic acid. Is that acidosis or alkalosis? Less carbonic acid. Alkalosis, yes. Less acid. It's alkalosis, right? How about this? If I slow down my breathing for some reason, just slowing down, keep it, or pause your breathing for some time. Do you get rid of more carbon dioxide or less? Less. So what happened to carbon dioxide in the blood? Increase, making acidosis, right? And what's the name of the enzyme that help forming and breaking carbonic acid? It's called carbonic. No, carbonic an anhydrase. It's called carbonic anhydrase. This is the name of the enzyme. Okay. So when I have carbonic acid, can it break down back? Yes, it goes both ways. Here it is, carbon dioxide and water. You put them together to make carbonic acid. Can I break it? Yes, you can make it and break it. Okay, and if you break it, it will give you hydrogen, which is acidosis. So relationship between, here is carbonic anhydrase, I was talking about it, and you need just to remember this name. And what does it do? Carbonic anhydrase, enzyme that catalyze this reaction, carbon dioxide and water. Clear? You should remember this. So remember the relationship between breathing and acidosis and alkalosis. This is something important. If you forgot it, just tell yourself the first question, why am I breathing? I'm breathing to gain oxygen, getting rid of carbon dioxide. I think these are basics, right? Why are you breathing? Gaining oxygen, getting rid of carbon dioxide. What if I breathe more? You gain more oxygen and get rid of more carbon dioxide. So you get rid of it. You take it out from the blood. It drops in the blood. Less carbonic acid. This is alkalosis. Did you get the relationship? Hypoventilation, acidosis or alkalosis. Hypo, it's acidosis. How about hyper? Alkalosis. You should remember this. Okay, so this is a relationship between breathing and pH, and it is important. Here is this reaction I was talking about. Hydrogen, water, carbon dioxide, when it increase, it reacts with water, giving you carbonic acid. What's the enzyme here? Anhydrase, carbonic anhydrase. And then it can break down, give you hydrogen, and bicarbonate. And bicarbonate will be absorbed, leading to acidosis. So now the control of the pH. How do we control the pH? It's all about gain and loss of hydrogen. Where do I gain hydrogen? I gain it from two sources in the food that you're eating. You know that there are some foods that are acidic, right? Um, different types of foods, lemon, orange. There are a lot of acidic things, right? Vinegar, isn't vinegar acidic? So you gain the acids from the food. This is one. The second one is metabolic activities. And we talked about this. Remember the metabolic activities? Pyruvic acid, lactic acid, right? So these are the sources, and we get rid of it through, and also breathing. This is the third one. And we get rid of it through the kidney, obviously. We get rid of hydrogen. And in the lung, how do you get rid of hydrogen in the lung? Through carbon dioxide. Acid and base can be strong or weak. And I do want you to understand these terms. And here is what I want you to know. Strong acid, strong base, weak acid, weak base. It's all about dissociation. Dissociation. If you are easy and fast to dissociate, you are strong. The faster you dissociate, you are strong. Okay? What does that mean? What do you mean, like faster to dissociate? Here it is. Look at this. I'm an acid. What am I going to donate? What I'm going to give? What I'm going to release? If I am an acid, you put me in a solution. What I'm going to give to that solution? Somebody said it. Hydrogen. I am an acid, so I'm not going to give an acid. I'll give the hydrogen, right? Clear? I'm going to give my hydrogen. What do you mean give? Give. Like I have to dissociate, break down, and give the hydrogen. Hydrogen is part of you. I'm going to donate it. I'm going to give it. So you break part of you. What do you call that? Dissociation. Clear? So if it's easy and fast for me to dissociate, I will give more hydrogen. I'm acidifying more. I'm a strong acid. Is that relationship clear? How about if I dissociate less, slowly? Well, it means you put me in a solution. I'm gonna give hydrogen to that solution. That's okay. How much? Little bit. A little bit. Why? Because I don't dissociate. Hydrogen is part of me. I have to break down part, which is hydrogen, and give it. If I don't dissociate fast, it means I am a weak acid. Same thing for the base, but instead of hydrogen, it's OH. Is that clear? So which one is fast to dissociate and break down? Is that weak or strong? Strong. If what if you're low or slowly dissociate? Weak. Is the relationship clear? If you don't dissociate, you don't break down, you don't give anything, you're weak. You have a weak effect. Clear? So what this have to do with what we're talking about right now? Um, I'm going to talk about it, but it's all about the buffer system. The buffer system is weak acid and weak base. If I am the buffer system, I'm the buffer system. Okay. Remember, acid release what? Hydrogen. Base release what? OH. How about buffer? Both. Both. On this end, I have weak acid. On this end, I have weak base. You have both of them? Yes. Which one is going to work? It depends. I'm going in the blood like this. I'm moving in the blood, moving in the blood. What's happening in the blood? It's getting acidic. What do you think I will release? OH to neutralize it, right? It's getting acidic. What should I release? OH. What if I'm moving around? I have both of them. This side is weak acid, this side is weak base. I can use both of them. And the blood is alkaline. I need to fix it. What should I release? Which one should I use? The acidic end or the alkaline end? It's getting alkaline. It's getting more basic. Which one should I use? Acidic end to fix it. Acidic end or the basic end? The acidic end, because it's getting alkaline. I have to neutralize it, right? So this is the buffer. And the question is, why in the buffer are you using weak acid and weak base? Why don't you just say like acid and base? It's getting alkaline, I use the acid. It's getting acidic, I use the alkali. That's it. That's easy. Why are we complicated like this? Why does it have to be weak? Because if it is strong, it means it dissociates really fast, right? It's going to give you major, huge change, which is not needed because the changes that happen are actually minor. Like it goes like from it's 7.35, 7.45. It can go like to 7.3, 7.25. This is a minor change, isn't it? Minor change. Are we following? It doesn't move that much. 7.35, 7.45, it goes a little bit down, a little bit up. So you don't need something strong. You know what? What if you're using a strong acid, strong base? It's going like it's instead of 7.45, it's 7.5. If you put a strong acid, it's going to take it down to 3. Is that something that you need? No, you just need a minimal change. That's why we're using weak acid and weak base. Carbonic acid is a weak acid. It can be used. And here this buffer is weak acid and weak base. And I told you why it has to be weak because the change is minor. Weak acids and weak base result in minor changes. Clear? Is that clear? Weak acid and weak base. This is the buffer system. What are the buffer systems that we have? And you need to know. As you see, I'm not going word by word. I'm focusing on what we need to know. Okay, everything that I'm saying is important. What's the buffer system again? Weak acid and weak base. Can it be strong? No. It will result in major changes that's not needed. Dramatic changes. We don't need it. That change is always minimal. So what kind of buffers do we have in our body? Phosphate buffer, protein buffer, carbonic acid bicarb buffer. So one end is carbonic acid, one end is bicarb. Carbonic acid is the weak acid, bicarb end is the weak base. Same for those two. So 3 different types. Now, where is that buffer system? Are you talking about you're buffering the blood or you're buffering the cells? We buffer both of them. Do you need the pH to change in anywhere in your body, or you want it to be within the normal range? You want it to be within the normal range, inside the cells or outside the cells? Everywhere. Everywhere. I want it to be normal everywhere. So we do have it in intracellular. Some of these are intracellular and some of those are extracellular. Okay, intracellular are phosphate and protein. Extracellular, carbonic acid, bicarb, and protein. What does that mean? I mean protein work both of them. Clear? Carbonic acid bicarb, extracellular. Phosphate, intracellular. That's 2. How about the third one? Both. You have it in and out. Okay? And examples of those are hemoglobin actually work as a buffer. Amino acids, proteins. Without going into the details, let me just tell you that this big chain of amino acids called proteins, the ends have OH and H, okay? Without going into the structures. But I want you to remember these names, okay? If I ask you what is the main buffer system in extracellular fluids, it's bicarb, carbonic acid bicarb. Next is protein. How about intracellular? Phosphate and protein. What are the examples of the proteins? Hemoglobin, amino acid, and plasma proteins. You should remember this. Okay. And this is good enough to know. For that protein, I told you already that there is one end that contain carboxylic acid and the other end contain hydrogen. So it can work. Protein. Look at this. You will see ends. Here is one end, and here's one end. This contain hydrogen, and other side contain OH. So it can work either way. But what I told you is good enough. Hemoglobin buffer system, amino acid buffer system, plasma protein buffer system. Here is the hemoglobin buffer system. Carbonic acid bicarb. This is the one that we talked about already, which is has to do with the carbon dioxide. This is the one. It's they keep on repeating over and over and over again. The basics are what I told you. Okay. If you're following with me, you can summarize this chapter into like half or even less because they keep on repeating things. So here it is again. When you breathe, you get rid of carbon dioxide and you gain oxygen, right? When you get rid of carbon dioxide in the blood drops. Normally, it reacts with water, meaning carbonic acid. If you have carbonic acid, it become hydrogen, and bicarb, hydrogen increase the acidity. Okay, which is the same thing exactly that we talked about before. Now, regulation. Regulation is nothing but putting together what we already talked about. So it's a repeat again. Okay, but the other way around. Here's what I mean. Are we following? Follow with me. We have three tools to control the pH. Three tools. Respiration, control the pH through carbon dioxide, which react to make carbonic acid. Clear? This is one. Next is kidney. Do you remember that the kidney can get rid of hydrogen? It can get rid of bicarb. It can reabsorb hydrogen. It can reabsorb bicarb. This is the second tool, right? And the third one is the buffer system. So what are the three tools controlling the pH in your body? The, the respiratory one, the kidney one, and the buffer, right? I have three of those, okay? I already talked about how respiration control the pH and how the kidney control the pH, or how does it cause it? Like example, hyperventilation. What does it result in? Hyperventilation. Acidosis or alkalosis? Hyper. Why do you breathe? Get rid of what? Carbon dioxide. What happened when you breathe? What happened to your carbon dioxide in the blood? Decrease. What happened to carbonic acid? When carbon dioxide decrease, what happened to carbonic acid? What's the carbonic acid? What's carbonic acid? Isn't it carbon dioxide and water? So what happened when the carbon dioxide drops? Carbonic acid decrease or increase? Carbonic acid decrease. Yes, carbonic acid decrease, right? Tomato and cucumber is salad, right? Less tomato is less salad. That's it. Less cucumber is less salad, right? Carbon dioxide and water, tomato and cucumber, carbon dioxide and water. This is carbonic acid. Less tomato or less carbon dioxide means less salad or less carbonic acid. Clear? You just put those two things together. One of them drops, which is not water. Water is always there. It's carbon dioxide. Okay, but this was the effect of respiration on the pH. Now we are going to take it the other way around, which is how you fix it. This is how you cause it, like respiratory acidosis. What is that? It's acidosis because an issue in the respiratory system, right? Respiratory alkalosis. Alkalosis because something in the respiratory system. Now we're going to talk about it the other way around. If your pH, and think about it, I know it's not that simple, but keep on thinking with me. If your pH should be 7.35, 7.45, now it is 7.25. What is that? Acidosis or alkalosis? Acidosis. Do you need to fix it and put it back to normal? Of course, right? This is physiology. You need to fix it. So what should I do now? Should I get rid of acid or add acid? Get rid of acid. It's acidosis. Get rid of acid. How can I get rid of acid? Carbonic acid, for example, through the respiratory system. Breathe more to get rid of more carbon dioxide. You have less carbon dioxide. You have less carbonic acid. Is that clear? So what's a respiratory control of the pH? If it is acidic, I breathe more. If it is alkaline, I breathe less. This is called the compensation. How about the kidney? You tell me. If your blood is acidic again, 7.25. This is acidosis, isn't it? Acidosis. So what do you tell your kidney to do? Your kidney can work with hydrogen and bicarb. What are you going to tell your kidney to do? You have acidosis. Tell the kidney to do what? Get what? Get rid of hydrogen? Yes, get rid of hydrogen. It's acidosis, right? And reabsorb what? OH or bicarb. Is that clear? How about if it is alkalosis? What should you tell your kidney to do? Alkalosis. Huh? Get rid of OH and reabsorb hydrogen. That's it. Is that clear? This is a compensation. This is two compensations, respiratory compensation and renal compensation. The third one is the buffer. And you have three types of buffer that you have to remember. Okay? Phosphate is intracellular, carbonic acid bicarb is extracellular, and protein is both inside and outside. So these are the mechanisms of controlling respiratory and renal mechanism. It all work. Respiratory work through carbon dioxide. The respiratory system compensates, or the respiratory mechanism, it's all about carbon dioxide. So you can compensate with the respiration, hypoventilate or hyperventilate. Same thing with the renal compensation. It's all about hydrogen bicarb. And I told you the bottom line. This is what you need to know. What secretion means? Does that decrease it in the blood or increase it? Secretion. When you secrete hydrogen or you secrete anything, decrease it. Yes. What secretion means? You get rid of it. Secretion secreted in the urine, right? You get rid of it. So secretion, it happened in different spots, proximal and distal and collecting duct. We talked about that uh, in the renal system. And buffer, we have the different buffer systems. We talked about it already. Renal response, it's all about hydrogen and bicarb. Okay. Acidosis, if it's acidosis, you secrete, you guys said it already, right? If it's acidosis, I secrete hydrogen and reabsorb whatever the bicarb that I have. And the opposite is for alkalosis. I secrete less hydrogen or reabsorb it, and I get rid of, I reabsorb OH. So what are the disorders of acid-base balance? It's acidosis or alkalosis. This is what we were talking about all the time. Acidosis or alkalosis, right? Whatever you're having, it can be acidosis, can be alkalosis. In both cases, it goes into different phases. Okay, it's acute phase and compensated phase. What does that mean? In the very beginning, there is a major change that happened. Okay, it was 7.35, 7.545. Now it's 7.2. This is acute phase. So acute means you didn't give enough time to your body to work and fix it. It's not fixed yet. Are we following or not? Are we following? So acute phase is when the change occur. You didn't compensate it yet. You didn't take care of it yet. It just happened. This is acute phase. 7.35, it's now 7.25. This is acute. Does it stay? Of course not. Your body is going to compensate. And this will be the compensated phase. When do you think your respiratory system and kidney and buffer system, do you think they will stay silent? They're not going to do anything when there is a change, like we have acidosis. Do they stay silent? Of course not. They're going to fix it, right? When they fix it, it's compensated, acute and compensated. Now, if, listen to this, if the change in the pH is happening because of an issue in the respiratory system, we call it respiratory imbalance. Acidosis. I find you having acidosis. What's the problem? Respiratory. Okay, it's respiratory acidosis. I measure your pH. I found it alkalosis. What's the reason? Do you have something in your lung? Yes, there is an issue in the lung, respiratory. What if it is anything else? It's called metabolic. Anything else. So if I give you a scenario or if I ask you a question, this person is having acidosis. Look, find if there is something wrong in the respiration. If there is, that's it. It's respiratory acidosis or respiratory alkalosis. How about if it's not respiration? That's it. It's metabolic. Kidney, metabolic. The buffer system, metabolic. And change it in a metabolism, metabolic. Anything else is metabolic. It's either respiratory or not. Respiratory, okay. Not respiratory, we call it metabolic. Respiratory, of course, it's carbon dioxide. Metabolic, it can be the acid or the bicarb. Okay, so I think that's good enough for today. We're almost done with this chapter. I'm going to stop here just to have a couple of slides. I will do it